Welcome into the Touchdown Alabama Magazine show. Jonathan McMath alongside TJ Paysinger. And Alabama, TJ coming off of a huge victory over Duke, a rout 62-13. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I sat in the comfort of my own home and watched this game, just watching the points rack up and up and up. I thought it would never end. 28 in the first quarter. It was ridiculous. 62 points hasn't been done by an Alabama team since 1991, I believe, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
You know, the Alabama defense came out, they played a pretty good game, but even Coach Saban said, and I quote, they lost focus, they had mental errors, and they couldn't get off the field on third down, specifically in the second quarter. Talk a little bit about that Alabama defense.
Well, first of all, you can't overlook the fact that Marcel Darius finally made his return. He said he was so hungry to get out there, and you could tell one of his first plays gets a 4-yard tackle for loss, and it was a great play. You know, he was really excited, did his little chest bumping out there. But he played well, still not able to affect the quarterback as much as we'd like. You know, that was kind of missing. Definitely can't afford for that element of the defense to be missing this coming week. Sean Renfrey, Duke quarterback, 17 of 37, He had one touchdown, which is the first touchdown Alabama has allowed on defense this year. That came late in the second quarter. And a little string where they scored all 13 of their points. So that was part of it. Josh Snead, true freshman running back, wasn't even listed on the depth chart, rushes for 83 yards against the Crimson Tide defense. That's actually a little bit more than you would expect.
So the Alabama defense played an okay game. They're going to have to step it up a notch as they get into SEC play, giving up 300-plus yards to Duke and almost a 100-yard rusher. Just not going to get it done. But on the other side of the field, the offense played as good as they ever have, and they were really balanced.
They were. Mark Ingram made his return. You know, had two different returns in this game. This one, the offensive side of the ball return. Mark Ingram, 9 carries, 151 yards. That's an average of 16 a carry. Just ridiculous. 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown that he made, he had a cut. I know you probably saw that cut. This shook the defender completely out of the way. It was really incredible. He even stated after the game and before that it was like his knee was never even hurt at all. So thankfully, we have Mark Ingram back in full swing. It's going to be great with him the rest of the season. And we also had a good performance by Greg McElroy for 14 of 20, 258 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have an interception, which is his first since the, was it South Carolina game? LSU game of last year. So that was just a great play by the Duke defensive back, really.
Yeah, McElroy only with 5 interceptions now in his career at the University of Alabama. So the offense played good. Trent Richardson had an excellent game on offense, but had a special return on special teams.
A very special return. He fumbled the ball, which took a lot of concentration for him to pick it back up. And he just displayed his brilliant speed by just zipping through that kickoff return for the Duke Blue Devils. He was just gone in a matter of seconds. And I got a feeling that that's not the only return we're going to see from him this year.
Yeah, the first kickoff return for a touchdown since 2004 when Tyrone Prothro hit it last. So
wow.
Definitely good to see the University of Alabama getting some kickoff returns. And always got a good field position, but to have Trent Richardson back there picking up where Javier Arenas left off, that's really good to see.
That's something that we're definitely going to miss this year, Javier Arenas being gone. So it's a very positive and kind of, you know, a great sign to see with Trent Richardson kind of taking up those duties.
Well, we don't want to overlook the wide receivers. Julio Jones had a big game, as did Darius Hanks. He had a nice catch. McElroy really spreading the ball around. 9
different receivers caught passes during this game, which is just incredible. Chris Underwood got his first career catch. So that was really nice to see. Julio Jones just looked like a man among boys out there, just running folks over, diving for the end zone. He's really in good shape this year.
Well, when we went to the Monday press conference, Coach Saban alluded to a new season and a team only being as strong as its weakest link. I think he is really ready to go for this Arkansas game week. Well, you know, while a blowout win over any opponent is good to see, it's going to be a totally different deal when Alabama visits Razorback Stadium right there in Fayetteville, Arkansas, with Ryan Mallett, the gunslinger, ready to go and ready to revenge really that ugly 35-7 loss last year in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, he had a bad game last year, got sacked a couple times, threw a pick. This year, he's going to be looking to avenge that loss, and this game is the beginning of a very, very tough 3-game stretch for the Crimson Tide. Possibly the toughest we've seen in a long time, with Florida and South Carolina coming up after this game. But first things first, Alabama turns its attention towards Fayetteville and a very rowdy crowd.
Yeah, before we talk some more about that offense, let's talk a little bit about that Arkansas defense. They gave up 24 points to Georgia this past weekend. What are your thoughts on the defense of Arkansas?
Well, they played pretty well. They gave up 392 total yards. I think 253 of those were passing yards, 139 rushing. So it was they gave up some yards, but they still found a way to win the game. One thing I want to point out is that they were leading the game 24-10 at the start of the fourth quarter. Yeah. Mark Richt rallies his troops, mounts a big comeback on that Razorback defense. They scored 2 touchdowns, tied the game at 24 before a play, which we'll talk about in a minute, a play that put them over the top at the end of the game. But I think the Razorback defense played okay, but it's not going to be enough against Crimson Tide in that great rushing attack this weekend.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, too, playing without A.J. Green was Georgia. Alabama's going to counter with Julio Jones. Maybe that could be a matchup difference in the Alabama-Arkansas game. Another thing, Arkansas leads the SEC in sacks, something Alabama has been struggling with. They're leading in the SEC with 4 sacks a game. A guy to keep their eye on is Jake Beckwith, a great defensive lineman. Now talk a little bit now about the Arkansas offense.
Well, this is a completely different offense than we're used to from Arkansas. If you remember 3 or 4 years ago, they had the great Darren McFadden and the blazingly fast Felix Jones, both in the NFL having good careers now. And now it's Ryan Mallett, Greg Childs, DJ Williams, big tight end, Chris Gregg, and then you got Joe Adams, who's a sophomore, I believe, receiver. Excuse me, he's a junior. That's a lot of offensive firepower right there. Ryan Mallett went 21 of 33 against Georgia, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, including the game winner with just a few seconds left against Georgia. Greg Childs caught that one. So it's going to be a tough task for the Alabama defense with this very, very explosive Arkansas O.
Well, you mentioned Ryan Mallett. He leads the NCAA with 360 passing yards per game. He's got 13 straight 200-yard passing games. And you talked about Joe Williams and Greg Childs and Joe Adams and Greg Childs and DJ Williams. All 3 of those guys, the only team in the SEC Arkansas is that has 3 wide receivers with at least 10 receptions and over, I believe, 100 receiving yards. It's something to that effect. So Alabama's going to have their hands full.
A lot of people dub this receiving corps as the best receiving corps in the country, and honestly, I can't disagree with that. They haven't really played a very tough secondary yet, but hopefully Alabama proves to be a very tough secondary against these guys because it's going to be quite a challenge. I'm anxious to see it.
Well, the Alabama defense has their hands full for sure, but let's talk a little bit about that Arkansas defense against that Alabama offense.
Well, anytime, it's pick your poison, really. You got Greg McElroy, all the receiving corps, Julio Jones, Darius Hanks, the speedy Marquise Mays. You can either pick your poison, have them come at you and stop the run, or you could defend the pass and have Mark Ingram and company, Trent Richardson, Eddie Lacy, those guys just running full speed at you. I don't know what I would do if I were you. Bobby Petrino and the defensive staff over there at Arkansas are going to have their hands full, but we'll see what happens. I think Alabama, however, will be able to move the ball against Arkansas relatively easily.
And maybe that brings up your key matchup.
My key matchup, absolutely. I think what you're going to see from Alabama is they're going to come in with a lot of 2 tight end sets. Preston Dial, Michael Williams on the other side, kind of bunch the formations up and just pound the ball at Arkansas. Because the more you run the ball, the more time that you use up from the game. The more it increases the time of possession for Alabama. So I really think they're going to try to keep Ryan Mallett off that field by just running the ball, maybe do some play-action passes. Offense is going to be very effective. I'm just anxious to see how they're going to execute it.
And I think one thing that we want to point out as I was prepping for the show is I was looking at the stats in Alabama when they have Greg McElroy underneath center handing the ball off to Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. They have less than 50 yards from the line of scrimmage. But out of the pistol, that's where the rest of the yards have come from. So just because Alabama's not, right there underneath center and they're running more things out of the shotgun and pistol formation, that doesn't mean that the running game isn't going to be their first priority. And something I want to add, too, you talked about that being your key matchup. I can't disagree any. I think that's going to be the biggest matchup. But I think if I went to key matchup Part B, it would be the Alabama secondary, the 9 new starters facing the Arkansas Razorback offense. Arkansas leads the SEC with 57 returning lettermen.
Yeah, that's the obvious thing that people are going to be watching is that veteran receiving corps, Ryan Mallett, that high-flying offense against the young secondary of Nick Saban's defense. Hopefully have them ready to play. But I guess that's why we got to wait a few days and see.
Well, we'll get back to this game, give you our prediction on it just a little bit later, but we're going to transition into the prediction segment and talk about Oregon State taking on Boise State. You got the blue turf going on. Mike Riley, a graduate of the University of Alabama, is trying to get his team ready by painting his practice field blue. Is it going to help?
Man, Coach Riley, no, it's not. The Beavers are going to go down in Boise. Everybody's kind of jumping on the Boise train. Well, actually, they've been jumping off thanks to Virginia Tech losing the great James Madison. Thank you, Hokies. But I think Boise State gets it done. College game day is going to be there. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Boise State wins fairly easily.
I think Boise State's going to get it done as well. I really don't see anybody stopping them unless if Kellen Moore goes down. And heck, if he does, the kind of conference that they play in, it probably really doesn't matter anyway.
Probably doesn't.
I think Boise State's going to win, and I do think Oregon State's going to keep it close for a half. But I think in the middle of the third quarter, Boise State's going to run away with it. I really don't want to see that. I want it to be a closer game, ABC primetime, but I don't think we're going to get it. Now let's go ahead and get into some SEC teams, still non-conference play. UAB coming off a 1-point win over Troy, going to face Tennessee, which played fairly well against Florida in Knoxville.
They did. They played very well for 2.5 quarters, and then it kind of just all went out the floodgates. But Tennessee put up a good fight. They're going to want to come back and get a win relatively easy. They beat UAB by 30 points.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's going to get it done as well. I think alluding back to that Florida game, Tennessee, they just don't have as much depth. They've been really hurt there, and I think that's what hurt them against Florida, but I think they're going to have more depth than UAB and far superior athletes.
They will. They'll get it done, though. Tennessee will be okay in a few years. I really believe that, as much as I hate to say it. But, not this year.
All right, now we got the matchup of the Bulldogs, Georgia and Mark Richt, who some say could be on the, the block here. Will he still have a job? Will Georgia go in and win that game against Mississippi State?
Oh, Georgia. Oh, boy. I picked you the past 2 weeks, and then you messed me up. No, you're not going to win this week. I'm never picking you again. I don't care if you're playing Tuscaloosa County High School. Bulldogs in cowbell country are going to take down the Bulldogs of Richtville.
I think Martin Richt and Georgia's going to have his team ready, and I think they're going to win this game, and I think it's going to be, honestly, relatively easy. I don't see Georgia losing 3 straight SEC games. All right, now let's go ahead and transition. Fresno State at Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off a 28-14 loss to Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him for beating Ole Miss. Robbie Caldwell getting his first SEC win, but Ole Miss is going to counter this week and beat Fresno State. I don't know how, but they will.
I'll tell you what, I think this is just a shot in the wind here, but I think Ole Miss is going to win the game. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just can't see them losing to Fresno State. And for Houston Nutt and Jeremiah Masoli, I tell you what, I hope they do win the game. All right, we've got a few minutes left. Let's transition. West Virginia at LSU.
Noah Devine, he's a great back. I think he's going to give the LSU defense a few problems, but Tigers win at night in Death Valley. Yeah,
Tigers, I tell you what, they got a great defense, and especially in LSU, they don't lose very often there, but they are Saturday night. Geno Smith, a better quarterback than Jordan Jefferson, in my opinion. They go in and they get the job done. Kentucky plays at Florida. It's in Gainesville. Kentucky, they're sort of maybe the team, the dark horse in the SEC East.
They're taking down the Gators this weekend.
Woo!
You can bank on that. Randall Cobb's one of the best athletes you'll ever see. He does it all, receiver, running back, quarterback. They're going to go into Gainesville and come away victorious.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it was in the Bluegrass State, I'd have to agree, but since it's not, I think Urban Meyer and his team's going to get it done. South Carolina at Auburn on the Plains, top 20 matchup.
Primetime game. It's going to be a good one. Spurrier and the Gamecocks roll into Auburn and end that streak with those close, squeaked-out wins. They beat Auburn this weekend. I
agree. I think the Gamecocks will get it done. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I think Auburn's going to go down mainly because of the pass defense and the running ability of Marcus Lattimore, a true freshman.
Woo, he's great.
All right, now we're going to wind up and talk about Alabama at Arkansas, top 10 matchup, 2:30, CBS.
It's going to be a great game, lots of scoring. Everybody's been looking forward to this one. First top 10 matchup in 30 years in Fayetteville. But I have so much confidence in the Crimson Tide. They're going to go in there and beat Arkansas. And I'm so confident that if Arkansas beats Alabama, I will do the Pig Suey chant on the show next year.
Well,
next week, sorry.
I'm fixing to say next week.
Next year,
I heard that. I'm going to pick Alabama as well. I think they're going to win 38-27. I think it's going to be a close matchup, but that Alabama offense is going to get it done. I think they're going to run away with it, and that Arkansas defense is going to be on the field a little bit too long to win the game.
Absolutely. I sure hope so. It's going to be a great game. I really can't wait to watch it. It's one I've been looking forward to, so we'll see what happens.
Well, TJ, it's been as fun as always. Thank you for watching, and I tell you what, we'll be back next week on the Touchdown Alabama Magazine Show. TJ Paysinger, I'm Jonathan McMath.